How do you step into a massive football institution and completely rebuild its broken culture from the ground up? Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the early days of Mikel Arteta's reign at Arsenal. We'll be pulling directly from Jan Mora's meticulous book, The Arteta Project. Forget the tactics for a minute, we're focusing entirely on the absolute bedrock of his strategy, which was fixing a highly toxic environment.
It all starts with one core question, right? How do you save a giant? How do you fix a global club that has literally lost its identity? It's so easy to think the answer is just throwing money at expensive players. But when an institution forgets what it actually stands for, well, you simply cannot tactic your way out of that problem.
To truly appreciate the surgery, we first have to understand the disease. Back in December 2019, Arsenal wasn't just a sleeping giant. The book paints a pretty visceral picture, calling them a confused side that had stopped believing its own slogans. The players didn't believe, the fans didn't believe, and honestly, the massive Emirates Stadium just felt like a suit tailored for a much, much bigger man.
Chapter 1. A Club Adrift. What's incredibly dangerous about this situation is that Arsenal wasn't in an acute, sudden crisis, which oddly enough can actually be easier to fix. Instead, they were suffering from a slow, agonizing cultural drift. Qualifying for the Champions League went from being the absolute bare minimum to a distant dream to just an excuse. Sliding imperceptibly down a slope is way harder to reverse than stepping back from a cliff edge.
So, enter a 37-year-old rookie manager, Mikel Arteta. Coming over from Manchester City, he brought this clear, uncompromising intervention imported straight from Pep Guardiola. The non-negotiables. Okay, let's dive into this, because these weren't just fancy PR buzzwords. They were strict standards of professionalism that absolutely could not be compromised. It didn't matter how famous you were or how much you were getting paid.
These non-negotiables formed the very bottom of a four-layer rebuild. Arteta's sequence was incredibly specific. First culture, then structure, then recruitment, and finally identity. You see, before any new tactics were drilled on the pitch, and way before any checkbooks were opened in the transfer window, the mandatory first step was the culture. You have to fix the culture first, because everything else builds right on top of that.
Arteta's non-negotiables. The core philosophy here was stark. The badge on the front of the shirt is always bigger than the name on the back. And Arteta backed this up every single day in the dressing room. We're talking strict punctuality, like if you were 1 minute late, you didn't play, period. We're talking relentless intensity in training and absolutely brutal honesty in the video room where mistakes were dissected without any sugarcoating. He basically turned these rules into the everyday weather of the club.
The price of discipline. Now here is the ultimate test for any new manager rolling in with strict rules. What happens when your best, most popular, highest paid players just refuse to follow them? Do you look the other way because you desperately need their talent to win on the weekend? Or do you actually enforce the rules and risk a massive, highly public dressing room fallout? This was the exact crossroad where Arteta's entire project could have easily collapsed.
Arteta's answer? Absolute ruthlessness. Let's look at the team's two biggest stars at the time, Mesut Ozil, their primary creator, and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, the captain and top scorer. When they repeatedly failed to meet these non-negotiables, like Aubameyang showing up late on match days, Arteta just froze them out. He moved them on. As Jan Mora notes in the book, a standard that bends for a star isn't a standard at all. It's just a negotiation. And Arteta sent a massive shockwave through that dressing room by completely refusing to negotiate.
Redemption under the rules. Now, it's super easy to look at those high-profile exits and think, wow, Arteta was just clearing out the dressing room to be a dictator. But let's look at the flip side. While the culture was definitely ruthless for those who wouldn't comply, it offered total, absolute salvation for those who fully bought in. If you committed to the team's present and future, Arteta would back you to the hilt, regardless of how badly your relationship with the club had fractured in the past.
We can see this duality perfectly when we contrast Aubameyang with Granit Xhaka. Aubameyang broke the rules, and he was shown the door. But Xhaka? He had famously sworn at his own fans, thrown his shirt on the ground, and been completely stripped of the captaincy before Arteta even walked through the door. I mean, he was practically packing his bags. But because Xhaka fully bought into the new non-negotiables, he was given this incredible path to redemption.
Just look at this timeline. It's honestly astounding. In 2019, Xhaka loses the captaincy in spectacular fashion. Fast forward to 2020, and Arteta is actively blocking his transfer away because he wants to keep faith in him. By 2022, Xhaka is a crucial leader driving a Premier League title race, and in 2023, he leaves on his own terms as a beloved champion.
It proved once and for all that Arteta's standard was never about a player's past mistakes, it was 100% about their present commitment.
Culture as the foundation. So what did all this pain, exile, and discipline actually achieve? By enforcing these rules without exception, booting the stars who wouldn't buy in and redeeming the outcasts who did, Arteta performed a brutal but completely fair surgery on the club. He took an environment that was toxic, confused, and just drifting, and completely replaced it. He forged a dressing room that was quiet, fully aligned, and incredibly hard. The bedrock for the next 3 layers was finally set in stone.
But hey, please don't think this was some magical overnight success story. There was a seriously painful period the author calls the wilderness year. Arsenal finished 8th in the league, they completely missed out on European football entirely, the public pressure was just immense. But here's the thing. The true test of this new cultural foundation was enduring those incredibly poor results without ever abandoning the non-negotiables. Because as the book brilliantly points out, a culture only counts if it survives bad results. Weak cultures? They collapse the minute the scoreboard turns against them, but Arteta's culture held firm.
Which brings us to our final, provocative thought. If culture fails, does talent really even matter? Arsenal had incredible individual talent back in 2019, but without alignment, they were just drifting into irrelevance. Whether you're running a massive football club, managing a corporate team, or building your own small business, Arteta proved that culture always reigns supreme over sheer talent. You literally cannot buy your way out of bad standards. You have to build the culture first. Thanks for joining this explainer, and we'll see you next time.